We're breaking down 5 mistakes unsuccessful songwriters make, but first, I have a question for you. Do you have piles of unfinished songs sitting around, or stacks and stacks of songs that you thought would be great but actually turned out kind of mediocre? Well, my name is Christian Hale, and I remember being at the beginning of my music career well over a decade ago now and being just right there. And in today's video, we're joined by a good friend of mine, songwriter coach, and someone I've had the pleasure of personally writing a bunch of songs with, Ross King. Ross, thanks for being here today, man.
Thank you for having me.
What are we going to walk these people through today and teach them?
Well, I just want to help people get better at knowing when they're finished with songs, knowing how to decide if I'm finished, knowing if a song is good, that kind of stuff. Quality control.
For sure. So we don't want you to be one of the unsuccessful songwriters. We want you to be a successful songwriter. So without any further ado, let's get into this video and start breaking down the 5 mistakes unsuccessful songwriters make and how you can avoid them. So mistake number 1 is not knowing what the song is supposed to accomplish. Ross, what does that mean?
Okay, so like any good YouTube video, this is going to be about goals. And goals is a huge part, as you know, of any part of successful business or creative endeavor or anything, right? And so one of the goals that I have when I'm writing a song is, what is this song supposed to be? Like, I call it the reasonable dream. So, you know, your dream for a song would be, well, Ed Sheeran's going to sing it or Taylor Swift's going to perform it or whatever, right? But a reasonable dream might be something like, I want to do this song personally at a writer's round. I want to pitch this song to some local or regional or other opportunity that you have, a songwriting contest. I want to use this song in this capacity, you know, for some kind of an event or your church or whatever, right? So stepping aside from just diving into like, I'm writing a song now, and first saying, what do I hope happens if this song is great? What do I hope I can do with the song? Where's this song going to go?
Yeah, so a mistake that you've maybe experienced earlier on in your career, or songwriters you're coaching and working with, you see them quite a bit go into a session or go into writing a song not really knowing what target they're shooting at. Is that
right? Exactly. And they'll be putting their own opinions about what a great song is there, or thinking about their own voice, or not thinking about what their own voice can accomplish, you know, or disregarding, you know, all kinds of commercial and monetizable sort of aspects of a song, or focusing too much on those things, right? Yeah. Depending on what the song is supposed to be. If a song is for you and you to perform it at a writer's round, you're going to have totally different goals and totally different approaches to the song than you will if you're saying, I'm pitching this song to someone. Someone has asked me to write this song for this other thing or this event or whatever. And so picturing where a song is going and where you want it to go is kind of primary.
Yeah, for sure. So how can we avoid making this mistake? What's the solution to this mistake?
Well, I think if you're writing, you know, sometimes we're writing just for fun, right? I can't know each of you what your songs are for, right? But when I sit down to write a song, I have a reason why I'm doing it. It could be recreational or hobby-based. It could be my own personal therapy, or it could be something for a job or a potential job, something on spec I'm doing. And I just say, where is this going to go? And what kinds of parameters and guardrails should I have on it so that it has the best chance to get to that place? And what parts of my sort of passion and, you know, flaws I might have, ways I approach things might keep it from getting there, you know? So you and I have written a ton, and there'd be times whenever I might say, I don't like songs like this. But if that's the kind of song you're writing, then you have to step back from your sort of pretentious, precious, you know, things and say, what's the best song objectively?
For sure. It's like you're hyper intentional going into a session on what the objective and desirable end outcome is with the song, and almost beginning with the end in mind and saying, all right, if this is the end thing that we're shooting for, what decisions am I going to make sure we really get there?
Absolutely. Right? And if the song is a low pressure situation of I just want to write, then you get rid of all of that.
For sure.
And you say, I want to have fun. I want to say the thing I want to say effectively and personally and sincerely, and, you know, use those kind of parameters versus I don't care if they know what I think here or how I feel. I care that the song can reach the audience that it's supposed to reach.
And that's a great segue that leads us right into mistake number 2, which is not knowing who the target audience of your song is. Talk to us about that, Ross. What is that mistake?
Yeah, and this is sort of obvious, and we talked about it a little bit just now, but this idea that there is a person, there's an avatar, if you will, for your song. There is a target, and that target usually isn't you, and it may not be even the people that you know or people that you relate to well. It may be a very specific kind of person. So this song is going to be for a commercial or for an ad. Well, what is the consumer for that? Who's that product for, and who are they aiming for, or that song is going to be performed at a certain kind of a event. It's a patriotic event, or a spiritual event, or a school event, or a kids event, or a senior adults event, or whatever it is. There's all these different ways that there's a person that is likely to be inspired by, excited by, entertained by that. And there's a kind of person who's offended by and put off by and, not the audience for that. And those are things you have to think through if the song is going to go beyond you.
Yeah, for sure. So to avoid that mistake, to avoid that pitfall, it sounds like you're hyper intentional about getting to know and deeply understand who that end user is before you set out to even write a song. Am I hearing you right in that?
Absolutely. There's a principle I've heard in social media marketing that basically says, do people like me like things like this? And so the idea just being, what is this person, maybe not a person like you, but do people like my audience? Who are they, and will they like something like this? Will they respond to, will they be impacted by, emotionally moved by something like what I'm doing? And that'll happen at a micro level with this specific lyric, this melody change, this genre choice, this production choice, and it'll happen on a micro level. Is this the kind of song that works with this kind of person?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, spoiler alert, we're kind of letting you in behind the curtain. I actually do this kind of thing with the content I make for you guys too. Like, I've gotten hyper obsessed to get to know each and every one of you watching this video, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your pain points are. And then I want to make content that serves you, that applies to you, that you want to keep coming back for answers and solutions and ways to level up the music you're working on. And I think that a lot of times, though, when I take a step over on the creative, on the songwriting, music making side, it's so easy to have that kind of thing overlooked. I think that's such a smart and wise and insightful thing to
yeah, and it can feel kind of cold-hearted and maybe mechanical or scientific or whatever. But the fact is, if you're trying to go beyond an amateur level of creativity, you have to make those choices. And if you're great at it, the good news is you make a little bit of money and can fund all this other stuff you want to do that's maybe not as deliberate, maybe just kind of more fun for you, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's super wise, Ross. So when you're writing songs, don't make the mistake of not knowing who your audience is. But before we continue on to the next point, I want to let you know about a special offer just for those of you watching right now. Ross, you have a songwriting course called Tools Not Rules. Tell us a little bit about that course.
Yeah, I made this course because I realized songwriters are really good at starting and not always good at finishing, or not always good at knowing when they're finished or knowing how to feel about it when they're finished. And so the Tools Not Rules curriculum is basically just walking you through how to finish songs, how to feel good about what you've done, how to know when to not feel good about it, how to edit it, how to have your own sense of quality control of what you've done, and also gives you tools to know how to finish a song well and with confidence.
Yeah, and as you can see from this episode, Ross has a ton of wisdom, ton of great tips, techniques, and insights on how you can level up your songwriting. And Ross, actually, just for viewers of this video and viewers of this channel, is offering 50% off his songwriting course, Tools Not Rules. It's normally $97, but for those of you watching right now, it's only $49. To get that 50% off coupon code, go to my website, christianhale.co/Tools Not Rules to get that course right now. So with these first two mistakes in mind, that leads us right into mistake number 3, which is not knowing what your role in the room is. Ross, what does that even mean?
So this is speaking primarily to the idea of collaboration. So what your role in a room is, a room with people, right?
And just pausing real quick, Ross, when you say a room and co-writing, like, give us the 30-second explanation of what that is, because I know some of you guys out there co-write, but maybe some of you don't. Like, what is co-writing?
Right. And don't skip this if you don't co-write, because we're going to get to some stuff that's solo based too. But co-writing is just, hey, two or three or four, or sometimes in pop 8 or 9 people get together and they say, let's bring all of our different giftings and talents and strengths and whatever into the room to create the perfect song or whatever.
Yeah, pretty common in Nashville, LA, commercial music.
Yeah. But even on an amateur, like hobbyist level, it's great to be like, this person's a great guitarist. I'm just an okay guitarist. I'm a good piano player. This person's good at lyrics. I'm not so good at that. I'm good at melody, whatever. Get together and build something.
Yeah, and I think in an ideal co-write, you don't have, 10 quarterbacks or 10 3 linemen, 3 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers. You have a team of people with different skill sets that hopefully complement each other and can work really well to write a great song.
And to be fair, some of you are not in situations where you have a ton of choices for that, right? But to the extent that you do, when we talk about what's not knowing what your role is in the room, what I say is this, like I want to know, like when Christian and I get together, Christian is a killer producer and musician.
I'll slip you a 20, Ross.
Yeah. And I'm primarily like a classic songwriter, lyrics and melody, right? I'm an okay instrumentalist. I'm not a great producer. Now, both of us have done all-in-one 100% situations where he starts with nothing, and by the time he's done, he has written and produced and performed it, right? And I've done the same thing. And so we both can do that. But when we get in a room together, I immediately know, okay, I'm going to lean on Christian for these certain things. For in our situation, for production, for melody choices, for editing, he's very much going to like say, "Ooh, I love that idea, Ross," and he's going to give me a kind of a quality control on the stuff I'm doing. And then he's going to see me as Ross will have ideas. He'll have lyrics. If we get stuck, Ross can finish a lyric. You know, Christian and I have been in a ton of situations where we finished a verse and chorus and we got it. And I'm like, Christian, can you just work on the track for a bit? I'm going to write verse 2. And he knows I can do it. And I'll write 2 or 3 verses. And then he's able to edit and choose, I like this and that and whatever, right? So in a room, if I walk in thinking, I'm a songwriter, I can write the whole thing, I don't know what they do. Or, you know, walk in a room saying, I don't know my strengths, my weaknesses, whatever, that's not going to be that helpful to get you moving forward. You want to have this effective system of, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, I need them for this, right? You know.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, Ross, like it sounds like one of the ways that you avoid this mistake in your own songwriting is first being really sure and confident of what you do really well, and also maybe what you don't do so well. Is that
and that takes time to learn that.
Yeah.
We've
How do you learn that?
By being told your song wasn't good and knowing that it's your fault or knowing that you did something wrong. You know, critique is, as you know, it's huge.
Yeah, and I think some of that comes from experience of getting in the room. Like somebody like Ross, he's so good, just like naturally what he does, and it's skill and years of experience, but like your superpower with lyrics and twisting and flipping phrases, like I can do some of that, but it's going to take me a whole lot more work to do what Ross can just do off the cuff.
And by the same token, I'll extend over your shoulder and occasionally say, what about this production thought? And you might be like, that's cool, I hadn't thought of that. But for the most part, I'm going to be like, if I just step back and let Christian do this, he's going to create something better. I would say this as a quick little thing, the ideal collaboration, the ideal collaborative experience leaves me feeling really good at some stuff and also really humbled at the talent of the people that I'm actually with. That's a perfect sort of combination feeling that you want in a good co-write. You don't want to walk out thinking, I did all the work, or man, I'm terrible at this, why was I even there? What you want is an affirmation of what you're great at and what you're strong at and what you bring to it, and also a sense of humility and kind of, I got to work it. I'm grateful that person, they exist and they do their thing because I can't do that as well.
So really, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like the way that you go about not making this mistake is 1, knowing yourself, and then 2, just being hyper intentional about being attuned to the other people in the room, getting to know them, paying close attention to what they do well, and then sort of knowing your lane and knowing your role.
Absolutely. And this is bad news, good news, but Christian can attest to this. A lot of this is just knowing how to read a room and having good social skills. And
it's no fun.
I mean, it's not very sexy, but there is a lot of, do you know how to like notice that everyone's ticked at you and that you're running the room? Do you know how to notice that there's something happening in the room and it's an emotional moment, you need to like focus on that? You know, can you read and sort of be a person who picks up on cues? And we've both been in situations where either we or someone else in the room ruined that, you know, and
Ross has never ruined that vibe before.
Shut up, Christian. Shut up. You don't know me.
All right, this video's over. No, just kidding. No, that's great. And actually, talking about all this human psychology and roles in a room, I actually think is a great transition to mistake number 4, which is focusing so much on winning the song that you lose the cut. Ross, what in the world does that even mean?
This is a phrase I started saying early in my career because I had a lot of years of experience in writing songs that worked for my particular context, but they weren't the same. It wasn't the same context as Nashville writing for other artists. So I would go into sessions thinking, I know how to get the best song, and I would fight for the best song in my opinion, which maybe even was objectively the best song, right? But I would end up in a situation where the artist I was working with didn't love the song or couldn't perform that song in an effective or sincere or authentic way. So we leave the session with a great song that doesn't get used for the purpose that we set out to use it for. You'd have this situation where you are so aware that if you fight for this moment, this is a cooler song. or this is a song that feels more edgy or more interesting or has a more provocative moment or a little bit more of a gut punch, right? But you realize that's not the goal of this song.
Right.
Or I had things when I love songs with lots of rhythms and sort of hip hop based movements and things.
Yeah, go check out Ross's music, link down below. You'll hear a whole bunch of that.
Let's just focus on that for a while. No, but I would do that and I would realize I've written something that has a pocket, like a rhythm pocket that this artist, you and I have been in these rooms before. You write something and the artist is like, suddenly you're like, they can't sing this.
Yeah.
We wrote a very cool thing that they can't sing. And so now we have a really cool song that has no home.
For sure. Yeah, so how can you avoid making that mistake?
Well, if you're writing with or for another artist, you study ahead of time.
Yeah.
You learn their stuff, right? You ask them what their goals are. You in the room, don't sing it all. Let them make sure they sing it. We've had this before where you're writing with someone and you realize we've been writing for an hour and they've not sung audibly in the room yet, you know? And so you need to know what their voice is like.
So
like
true.
what's their pitch? And, you know, producers like Christian are really good at asking, hey, where are your kind of money notes? Where do you sing best? Like what's a genre or pitch area or dynamic range that you're really strong and what's one that's weak? You know, you can write some song that's a wailer that's like got a bunch of yells and they have a very quiet voice. Or you write a song that's, like I said, rhythm based and they're not a great pocket rhythm singer.
Yeah.
So do your best to find out ahead of time and in the write, what do you like doing? How do you feel comfortable doing it? Can we hear you try this line?
Yeah.
Let's do the chorus real quick and make sure it's in the right range. Oh no, we just produced a whole track in the wrong key and none of it's MIDI and now we got to work hard to change the key.
Yeah.
You know, do those things as you're going. Be deliberate about finding out how good they are and what they're good at.
Yeah, kind of to that point too, our former publisher, both of us, Chad Segura, publishing veteran here in Nashville, he would say something a lot. He said it to me a bunch. I'm sure he said it to you a bunch too, Ross. He would say, especially if it's your first write with an artist, focus way more on getting a second write with the artist instead of writing the best song you possibly can. And I think in order to achieve that goal, a ton of what Ross just said is how you do that. But I think a lot of that too is just being a good person, being likable, being a human and connecting with someone on a human level. I think that's a big key to succeeding and avoiding this mistake.
Because you can also win the song and lose the person.
Yeah, and that's even worse, arguably.
And all jokes aside, I have done this where I'm like, we walked away with an awesome song, and the person's like, I don't want to write with Ross again because he was too whatever, right? And
it wasn't that he was not talented or brilliant at his role.
Sure.
It's just maybe they didn't like you.
Yeah, they were intimidated by my handsomeness. They were thrown off by the sexy vibe I bring to the session.
The salt and pepper.
Not my
lots.
fault. Can't be uglier. Anyway.
I mean, Ross is, spoiler alert, a few years older than me, but I have to look as good as you.
Why do we even need to talk about that?
Yeah, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I've had a lot of work done. Anyway, can we keep going?
Oh, that's great. All this talk about Ross's good looks, I think, is a great transition to the last mistake number 5, which is getting too fixated and too focused on the first idea. Ross, what does this mean? Break this down for us.
Right. So you go into your writing time and you have a sense of why you're there. And you're like, oh, maybe you accomplished all these things we've been saying. You've got your goals as to what your song's supposed to be and all of that. But you have a hook. You have a line. You have here's what the chorus is about, right? And you start to build a song around that. But then sometimes, I mean, I'd say often, you end up through the creative process coming up with something else that you didn't expect. And maybe even it's better, more compelling, more inspiring, easier to write, closer to the target, whatever, than what you brought. But you're unable to let go of that first thing because some part of you, and this is a big problem for songwriters and creatives, some part of you feels so precious about that idea. You thought about it, it's related to some issue in your life.
Sure.
It's, something that you're trying to really say that's important, and something new pops up. I always say, find the best thing and serve that thing, even at the expense of other things, right? So when you're working, you'll end up with, this is why we brought this. This is the chorus. It's the chorus. It's the chorus. Then you write the verse, and something happens in the verse, a lyric, a melodic thing, some way you're doing the vocal range, whatever it is, and you realize some part of you thinks, that feels better.
Yeah.
That feels more interesting. That feels like a rabbit we have to chase.
Yeah.
But I want to hold on to this thing, right?
Yeah.
And that can really screw you up because you have to know this. If you toss an idea, it's not gone forever. Just write another song about it. Save it for later, write a different song about it. But focus on the thing that have your head on a swivel and focus on be nimble enough to say, I see this happening. that's not what we thought we were doing. It's better than what we were doing.
Yeah, how can you avoid this mistake? Because I feel like that sounds really good in theory, right? It sounds like, well, this is so obvious. Like, don't get too fixated on your first idea if a better idea comes along. But as people that have written hundreds and hundreds of songs, like, we've both been there tons of times where you're 2.5 hours into slugging away on a song.
Right.
And maybe it's not terrible, but maybe it's not great. And then you're like, do we just keep pushing through a little bit and fight through this idea? Because sometimes that is what you need to do.
Yes.
But then other times it's like, oh, wait, that thing just popped up. And I think that's the magic. But that's going to require us to pretty much scrap what we spent the last 3 hours working on.
Right.
So how do you actually go about not making that mistake and doing that?
Well, not to sell the last 4 points, but you have to go back through what got you to this moment and say, are we still aiming at the goal?
Yeah.
Is our sight still on that, and are we still heading in that right direction? But then two, I just say, if it's collaborative, and I think we're assuming a lot of this is, you have these moments of always at every, stop, at every moment of pause saying, hey, what just happened? Is that something we should focus on?
Sure.
Hey, are we getting there? How does everybody feel? Like, I've been 3 hours into a 4-hour write, and I've said, is this great or just okay? And there's nothing wrong with stopping and saying, I've done this 100 times. I've stopped and said, could we take 10 minutes and chase something completely different?
Yeah.
And if we don't get anywhere, fine, we'll go back to this.
Yeah.
But I like to see, because creativity breeds creativity, right? And if you're in like a first or second time collab with someone, you may find that first 2 hours of creativity down a certain path was just a primer to get everybody loosened up to be better at this, to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, to understand the vibe of the room, right? So I will stop occasionally if I have any sense of, are we getting the best thing? And I'll say, look, I love this. This is good, but I'm wondering if it's great. So first I'll ask how everybody feels. Yeah. And if everyone's like, it's great, then I'm just like, okay, I'll be a team player. But if there's any sense of, I'm not sure, I'll say, let's take a few minutes. We had this. I'll make sure we got it recorded on the computer or on the phone or something. And I'll say, let's take 10 minutes and let's chase something else. Is there something else we wish we would have done or could have done? Yeah. Or now that we're in here in this vibe thinking, oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it reveals, like, we might be in the middle of a session and Christian's like, can I show you guys this thing that I wrote? And we're like, whoa, that's a cool genre. We didn't know Christian did that.
3 hours ago.
Or they'll hear me do something lyrically or vocally or vibe-wise. They're like, I didn't know you did that. I love that thing. And now we'll chase that. And then if worst case, you got two interesting ideas that you now can mine from and work on.
Yeah, for sure. Man, Ross, I think that's so wise and takes a lot of courage to actually, like we talked about, implement that step to avoid that mistake. But really, this mistake, along with all of the 5 mistakes that we broke down, like if I would have been aware of this list 10 years ago, I'm not kidding. I think that I would have saved some time and saved some years, avoided some mistakes that would have made me a better songwriter a lot sooner.
Absolutely. And probably had a little bit more money in the account.
Well, it's not all about money, Ross, you greedy person.
Okay, sorry.
Well, hey, thanks so much to Ross King for being here today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, letting us know what the most helpful tip and technique you learned from this video was. You can learn more about Ross down in the description below. Here's to making better music, and we'll see you back here real soon.